The new and improved Drukhari are here, so let's take a look at one of their core troops units, the Kabalite Warriors. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy-focused 40k channel, where today we're focusing on the battle line of the murderous Cabals, all ready to gun you down with poisonous, painful splinter fire at a moment's notice. In this video we'll discuss the new Kabalite Warrior datasheet, a few obvious unit synergies to try and get more out of these spiky elves in game, and a few potential unit builds and combos. Plenty to cover here, so let's jump straight into it. So Kabalite Warriors are a troop's choice for the Drukhari. They're 8 points per model, 3 power level for a minimum size squad, though they can come in a unit size of 5 to 20. As I'm sure everyone knows by now, their stat line has been decently boosted in the new Codex. They still move 7 inches, hit on 3s, have strength and toughness 3, 1 wound, 2 attacks, leadership 7 and a 4+ save. That 4+ save is really quite a big deal as line infantry. They're going to want to be tougher to hold those objectives, and the extra attack might be a little bit meaningless against most things, but it could help them bully other very light infantry, things like guardsmen or other toughness 3 stuff. They do get blade artists with that, so any wound rolls of 6 will be at AP -1, so I guess that's something. Their standard war gear is the splinter rifle, a rapid fire 1 weapon, strength of 2 but wounds on a 4+ due to the poison special rule, and I'd describe it as okay though not massively standout in terms of damage. It'll be most effective against anything with high toughness but a low save, and it often means that it isn't really all that efficient on even very light infantry, things like guardsmen, or well armoured things like space marines. But in general, splinter fire is going to be best against things like hordes of orcs with decent toughness but bad saves, or potentially really tough things like demons and monsters. Greater demons like Keepers of Secrets are really not going to thank you for hitting them with loads of splinter fire. In terms of war gear options, the Cyberite squad leader can take a power sword or agonizer for 5 points, neither of which I think is really worth it aside from fluff purposes. It's not going to make the unit into a combat unit just by equipping one guy with a slightly increased power weapon. But more interestingly, they can take either a Phantasm grenade launcher, the one that fires D3 grenade shots for the chance to cause a mortal wound if you roll above leadership, or a blast pistol for a strength 8 AP -4 shot with D6 damage, but a fairly pitiful range of just 6 inches. The Phantasms could be nice, maybe if you're playing around with some leadership manipulation, like Dark Creed Covens, and if you're planning on being fairly aggressive with the Kabalite, the blast pistol is really quite a cheap way to get some very nasty anti-tank fire into the unit. With the fast movement of Venoms, Raiders and their own base movement, they do have a decent chance of getting that blast pistol in range. For special weapons, one model in every 5 can take either a blaster or a shredder. Blasters are 10 points and shredders 5, sorry for the small typo on the slide there, and I think that blasters are really quite good investment for anti-tank firepower. 18-inch range, AP -4 and a nice damage D6, certainly makes a base warrior squad far less of an easy threat to ignore. I think shredders are okay if you do want to amp up the anti-infantry firepower. 18-inch, D6 shots, strength 6 and AP -1 will chew through a few infantry, though maybe not quite as standout as the blaster for me. Finally, for 1 in every 10 models you can equip one with a dark lance or a splinter cannon. Both of these are heavy weapons, so ideally they want to be standing still to get the maximum value out of them. Splinter cannons are fairly efficient against big monsters and things, and also Primaris Marines with 2 wounds, and Dark Lancers are just a really nice anti-tank weapon now, with damage D3 +3. Typically though, I think that you're going to want these on units that aren't planning on being on the move, either if you're thinking about objective camping with some Kabalite Warriors, or maybe you're running them as Kabalite Trueborn who ignore heavy weapon penalties. In general, for upgrades, the ones I'll be most tempted by are the blaster for 10 points and the blast pistol for 5, the others all just being a little bit more niche. So what other special rules are out there to make the Kabalite Warriors a little bit stronger? First up, they do have power from pain like most Drukhari. They get that nice 6+ invul that will make them a bit more resistant to high AP weapons, and they'll quite enjoy the 5+ invul as well when they get to that. Most of the rest of the table doesn't do a huge amount for them though, as it's a bit more melee focused. I guess advancing and charging could be handy for getting them to objectives if they do want to get their obsec there nice and early. Most of the Cabals do seem fairly useful. I'm a bit less of a fan of Flayed Skull, only giving ignore cover in transport, but the rest seem very good to me. Poison Tongue is the go-to for mass splinter fire, makes it far more dangerous with a 3+ to wound, so it's basically 33% increased damage on the standard splinter rifles, and it could even be worth giving the splinter cannons a second look as well. Blackheart will get their 5+ invul on turn 3 with their power from pain buff, and they also get a single shot reroll, not too bad for blasters. And Obsidian Rose are a nice shooty Cabal, an extra 6 inch of range doesn't hurt splinter rifles or blasters, and they get a single reroll to wound roll per shot as well, Again, very nice in combination with those blasters. They seem like a pretty ideal choice for minimum squads of Kabalite Warriors, with one blaster equipped, zooming around in Raiders or Venoms to take objectives. Transport-wise, I did compare the Raiders and Venoms in a previous video. I think both absolutely have their uses, though for take-all-comers purposes I do think that the Raider edges things out just a little bit. There's not really all that much difference in points to the Venoms, so it's not even really the biggest deal if you don't use their extended transport capacity. Being able to fit in 10-man squads is a bonus though, as is the Splinter Axe upgrade to potentially get your battle boat firing off rifle shots at a good 24 inches. Venoms are perhaps a bit of a better choice for smaller OBSEC units, zipping around with increased movement and not having to commit quite as many resources, and they do quite well in the Poison Tongue Cabal as well for wounding on 3+ with splinter weapons. Just before we move on, one Cabal that I forgot to mention was a potentially quite interesting Poison Custom combo. You can get extra hits on 6s with splinter weapons and AP-1 on wound rolls of 6. Again, that's a pretty respectable damage buff with splinter fire. The extra AP-1 certainly doesn't hurt against more well-armoured targets like Marines. If you have a Master Archon present, then you can upgrade one squad per detachment to Kabalite Trueborn. It means that you have to pay an extra 2 points per model, so it's 10 points per Kabalite Warrior, but they do get some nice upgrades. They get an extra pip of leadership, which can help occasionally, a very nice ballistic skill 2+ to make all of those blasters and dark lances far more accurate, and also they ignore any and all modifiers to hit. It means that you can zoom around with your dark lance in a raider and still be hitting on 2s, no questions asked. I'm not sure if the upgrade's quite good enough if you're just planning on using standard splinter rifles. I'd only consider it if I was going quite heavy on the heavy and special weapons. Moving on, the biggest character synergy that you can get is of course with the Archon. He'll give you reroll 1s to hit, which can be quite nice if you're getting a really big unit of Kabalite Warriors going, but at only a 15% damage buff, it isn't exactly the end of the world if you miss out on it. Blackheart will get the best out of this if they do get to use their Writ of the Living Muse, allowing them reroll 1s both to hit and wound, which can be pretty nice in combination with a few blasters and things. I'd say Archons are helpful if present, but it's not enormously game-changing as to whether or not they're close or not. Finally for buffs, as core infantry there's plenty of stratagems that can be good use. Never Stationary is the old Fire and Fade, moving 7 inches after they've shot, a bit more pricey at 2 command points, but could be worth it if it's the difference between getting to an objective or not. Prey on the Weak can give you full rerolls if you target a unit that's less than half strength, potentially a very serious damage boost for just 1 CP. Potent Metallotoxins allow poison to work at full effect on vehicles for a unit. I'd say that this one is potentially a nice to have if you have nothing else but splinter weapons to use, but still very pricey, and against tough vehicles with a 3+ armor save, you're not even guaranteed to get that many wounds. Even for a Cabal of the Poison Tongue unit, shooting 10 splinter rifles at rapid fire, wounding on 3+, is still going to be averaging only around about 3 wounds on a vehicle with a 3+ save, even for 2 command points. I think this one does have the potential to be a bit overestimated in just how good it is. Otherwise, there's plenty of other decent Eldar staples. Cruel Deception can allow you to fall back and shoot if you need a bit of extra damage. Webway Portal could allow a unit to deep strike, maybe very good with a big unit of 20. There's lightning fast reactions for -1 to hit, and a new one that can get you +1 save if you're taking advantage of light cover, meaning that in theory your Kabalite Warriors could be getting to a 2+ save if they are trying to lurk in cover, and potentially just weather an enemy shooting phase on an objective. Generally speaking, I wouldn't be using too many command points on just base infantry, but situationally, basically all of these could be pretty useful at the right moment. So here we have just a few ideas for some unit builds for the Kabalite Warriors. I think a popular unit could be a 5-man unit of Kabalites with a blaster, all packed into a Venom with double splinter cannons. That's 135 points, and gives you a nice little mobile objective secured squad. For 175, you could get 10 Kabalite Warriors with splinter rifles, all cruising around in a raider with splinter axe. Maybe that could be a nice Poison Tongue option. 20 splinter shots wounding on 3s is going to ruin a lot of infantry's day. Perhaps for a Trueborn loadout, if we are getting a bit more spendy, a unit of 10 of them with a blast pistol, 2 blasters and a dark lance in a raider all comes to 225 points. And potentially if the enemy gets too close, that's 5 dark light shots coming out of the unit, with 4 of them hitting on 2s, and 2 of them being dark lances with D3+3 damage. It feels like a Ravager on steroids, and even when you kill it, you then have to deal with the squad that gets out. Still certainly a little bit fragile for the points compared with some other options. Finally, perhaps for a Webway Strike unit, you could have 20 Kabalite Warriors with 4 blasters for 200 points. Maybe put them in the Webway and aim to coordinate with an Archon. Could be quite a lot of damage coming out of the blue, and then you might even be able to charge and steal an objective just with sheer weight of numbers and Auspex bodies. Overall, it's looking like Kabalite Warriors are certainly a strong unit for the Drukhari army, and I'm sure they'll be seeing plenty of play in competitive lists. Between some fairly decent fire support and being a bit more durable, they're good units for packing into transports to ride out to secure objectives, perhaps while some of the more aggressive units tie up or get stuck into the enemy. Perhaps their splinter rifles are just a little bit on the mediocre side, but the dark light weaponry is very nice. As being one of the 3 troops units on offer, they are going to get compared to witches and racks. Witches fulfill a much different role really, being far more suited to being out and out shock assault units to go and charge down the enemy, where Kabalite Warriors want to just be unloading and dishing out fire, so I think a mix of those might perhaps be preferable. Racks with their toughness 4 and 5+ feel no pain do tend to be a bit more durable point for point, and for that reason I think that they're going to get selected a bit more for holding home field objectives, and maybe for more cheap small objective units, maybe hiding in venoms. I think both they and the Kabalites are pretty usable for that role, to be honest. It'll be interesting to see what people tend to go with. So anyway, look forward to hearing all of your thoughts on the unit down in the comments below. How are Kabalite Warriors shaping up in the new Drukhari Codex for you? And are there any aspects of them that I'm missing in this video? Hopefully we'll have a fair bit more Drukhari content on the way over the next month or so stay tuned if you'd like to see more, or consider subscribing to Auspex Tactics. Finally, if you have been enjoying the videos on the channel, I would just like to briefly mention the Auspex Tactics Patreon page, which is what allows me to keep on making these videos quite so regularly and cover more factions than I would be able to otherwise. If you are enjoying a lot, any support is massively appreciated, as it really does allow these videos to keep on happening. I do try and have a few rewards for Patreon backers, including seeing certain videos early, regular votes for what sort of things come next on the channel, an automatic entry to the prize giveaways each month with a chance to win some big model kits. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description below, so feel free to check it out if you're interested. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.